Good morning and welcome to this week's class. Today we're going to talk about the legal framework of human resource. So today's class is going to be a bit dense, so I will try to do it as dynamic and quickly as possible. So what is the basis of the HR legal framework? Well, we know that the laws and regulations, first of all, are quite complex and they vary a lot among countries and among regions. So basically, for our class purposes, we're going to discuss what are the legal frameworks that we have to think of for businesses that have less than 50 employees. There are basically three basic aspects that have to be covered: the employee files, employee handbook, and display required posters. So exactly what are employee files? Well, of course, for HR purposes, you must maintain an updated employee file for each of the people that work for you. And these files include information such as that person is legally qualified to work in your country. The general file will include the internal information that you have, and this will include information such as documentation associated with that employee, like a college diploma, resume, internal assessments, job performance assessments, training verification, etc. And the employee's medical file is basically all of that information that you need to have that includes the person's notes from doctors, any medical history that you need to be aware of, disability information, etc. And this specific section of the employee file, or this specific employee file that is relevant to their medical information, must be kept confidential. And so this must be kept in a very secure and locked space. The employee handbook. Well, the employee handbook is basically the handbook that you receive when you become part of a team, and so that you can understand all of the things that are expected from you and how you are to conduct yourself in that setting. So it lets you know what your employer wants from you and how you are expected to work. So you can make it very lengthy and very complex, or you can make it very simple. But basically, in order for you to be successful in running a small business, your handbook should include, if needed, non-disclosure agreements. For example, if you have a company that is in a very highly competitive industry, for example, video games, or other kinds of industries that you will be accessing highly sensitive information, then you may want your employees to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Anti-discrimination policies, these must all be included in your handbook. And of course, these will vary from one country to another. Safety and security, basically, this is what covers your employees' well-being, welfare at work, etc. So here, basically, you explain the policies that you have implemented in the company in order for your employees to be kept safe and to be both physically and emotionally looked after. So here you will have to ensure that you comply with legal regulations. This will be included in the manual. Here you will also include any specific regulations that, for example, you as a company have decided to include, but that you are not legally bound to include, for example. Then you also explain policies regarding emergency situations, video surveillance, etc. Here you will also include important information such as rules about passwords, locking devices, locking doors, etc. Then in the employee handbook, you will also have information such as compensation and benefits. So for example, you will explain how many days of paid vacation leave do your employees have and how should they go about asking for those days. What other kind of benefits do they have? Do they have, for example, health benefits? Do they have access to a gym membership, etc.? Then other important aspects such as the work schedule, vacation, leave time. What is your business's policy on schedules? How many days of sick leave do they have? What is your policy regarding lateness? If people are going to be arriving half an hour late, do they have to notify you, or should they just show up? Will they have to make up the hours later on? Will it be deducted from their salary, etc.? And standards of conduct. This is extremely important because here you will have to include information such as what kind of policies do you implement in terms of sexual harassment? Do you allow for employees to engage in office relationships with other employees? What kind of dress code do you want your employees to adhere to? What is your policy regarding online and offline behavior? Will you allow them to access personal social media, for example, at work, or will they not? Will they be allowed to use their phones, their personal phones, or will they have to keep it turned off and in their bag, for example? So you must be able to define all of these policies and regulations. And then, of course, you must be able to explain what's going to happen if they don't adhere to them. And then general employment information. Besides what I was explaining, besides what the actual law requires, you as a business will establish specific policies and procedures that are specific to how you work and the kind of service or the kind of product that you want to provide for your clients. So here you will have to define important aspects such as your work ethics. How do you decide on people being promoted? What are the kind of reviews that you are going to implement for employees, for job assessment, etc.? What does the termination policy look like? Are there going to be referrals, etc.? When your employee, when you recruit an employee and they become part of your team, it's very important that you ensure that they receive a copy of this handbook, that they have read a copy of this handbook, and that they also sign a statement confirming that they have understood everything that is included in there and are willing to adhere to all of the policies and regulations. Make sure that you put the statement in the file because this will be necessary to be used if later on there are any issues arising due to misconduct, etc. So the third aspect of the three things that we need to cover as a small business at the very least is displaying required posters. Depending on each specific country, you will need to display posters about specific issues or specific policies. So make sure that you understand what the law requires in your region, in your country, and that you make sure that you have displayed the posters as needed. So this brings me to the end of the first part of the class. I will be right back with the second.